Today's Toy Spot, we're having a look at the Neca Pacific Rim figures. We're looking today at Kaiju Knifehead. The Soul Monster released in a 3-figure set. Though I haven't seen the movie yet, I gotta say, Knifehead looks pretty cool indeed. This comes to us from the good folks again at Neca. Spot picked this up, however, from Super Power Collectibles. They have taken the liberty of offering you guys out there, a coupon, which I will include down below, so you guys can save $10 off your next purchase of $75 or more. Couple that also with really great service and free shipping over $99 on your order, and that works out to be a really cool place. That's where Spot picks up a lot of his stuff, so I mean, if you guys want to check them out, again, I'm going to provide the link down below. There's a picture of Knifehead right there. Right there. Really like the design of him. I really like the design of him. He's really, based on the figure, of course, he's really the only monster that I've been able to make out in the. I know in the trailer they quickly throw a couple of monsters on scene, but I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the movie and seeing what other creatures they battle in the movie. When we turn around the back of the package, there's a picture of Knifehead. If you want to collect all 3 figures, the other 3 figures, well, the other 2 figures would be the Gypsy Danger and the Crimson Typhoon, the 2 Jaegers from the movie. Again, no read-up, and I'm surprised. Lately, I find NECA kind of is leaving read-ups off of their packaging. I'm not really sure because it's not like they're using a generic read-up, and it's not as if they're really using one language specifically where they would not need a read-up. Like, I can understand if maybe, they just don't have space. They could probably have put a little read-up here. That would have been nice, but I suppose it's not too big of a deal, and maybe Spot's just wishful thinking. But needless to say, what I am going to do is I'm going to take a break. I'm going to get this opened up, and when we come back, we're going to get a better look at Kaiju Knifehead. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Alright, so having a look at Knifehead. Where do we begin? Well, you know what? I'm gonna level with you guys. This figure, I feel as if having him in package, I feel as if I enjoyed the figure more seeing him in package, not knowing what he was going to be like versus what he ended up being. Getting him out of package is, I don't want to use the word disappointing. It's not what I expected it to be. I'll say it's not what I was expecting it to be. Let's have a look first. You know what? Before we get all into doom and gloom, let's get into, like, for example, his face. His face is one of the nicer aspects of the monster. He's got this very long, protruding, spear-like face. Rooted deep inside that face, you can see it looks like he's got 2 front eyes, another 2 on either side there. He's also got his tongue and teeth visible. He does have articulation, which is surprising. I didn't actually expect that he had articulation, though it does stop at the tongue, and that's understandable. The tongue is a solid piece. I initially thought it might have been rubber, but it is solid, so at least he does have movement in his mouth. Unfortunately, though, one of the biggest problems of this figure is exactly the articulation of him. I feel as if I'm looking at a figure that is from a movie line now, but the figure was almost made as if it was made back in the 90s or the early 2000s. You're looking at it and you feel as if there is a lot of articulation to it, and it is, and it isn't. Let's get it out of the way too. I find his scale seemed a little small. I'm going to bring in, for example, Crimson Typhoon. And I don't know. I haven't seen the movie yet, but maybe scale-wise, that is the appropriate scale between the two. I feel as if Knifehead really should be as tall, maybe just a little bit shorter, but he does seem awfully dwarfed when coupled against the Jaegers. Just as a comparison, I'm going to put Typhoon there, and I'll bring in Gypsy Danger, and I'm going to put him just in the back. And you can see, of the three, Knifehead's quite a bit smaller. Now, you're watching this video under the assumption that Spot, of course, has not seen the movie. Maybe Knifehead, though he is obviously several hundred, probably stories tall, maybe he is shorter than the Jaegers. But on a figure level, he is definitely not as imposing when you've got him, scaled up against, even if I get Typhoon properly, even if I get him fully standing up, you can see he is so much smaller than the two Jaegers. It's almost disappointing, really. Neca doesn't really do, well, I shouldn't say that. They do like small 6-inch scale figures, and then they do like an 18-inch scale figure and right around that size point. Knifehead, it's a shame that they couldn't have given him maybe like a box set or something like that, where they could have really beefed him up, like really given us a large-sized figure. Unfortunately, I'm kind of just looking at a very small, tiny figure compared to that of the Jaegers. On the back, he's got some nice detailing on this piece. I really like this backbone structure that he's got going on there. Taking nothing away also from the nice yellow lining that he's got around his arms, around his body as well. He's got a rubber tail, and it looks as if, yes it is, it's got a wire frame, so at least you can move the tail. Initially, I thought the tail was going to be in the way, and he wasn't going to stand properly, but at least now I can see, yes, he does have a wire frame tail. Now, when you get to the actual articulation, this is unfortunately where he slightly suffers, and maybe there was no way around it, because based on how he's sculpted, if they had put ball joints there or hinge joints, it would have broken up the overall aesthetics of how he's sculpted. It looks like they tried to keep sculpt as the first priority, articulation as the second, because all the articulation is concealed on the figure, that looking at it, you almost can't see where the articulation is until you start moving arms. When you move his arm, it's unfortunately only on a hinge. It only rotates left and right. However, as a testament to NECA, even if I'm not happy with the fact that they didn't give us ball joints, I am happy though that most hinge arms, when you rotate arms, you know that there's always that section where an arm looks off, where it's sticking further out from the shoulder. But as you can see, let me zoom a little closer in there for you. As you can see, as you move the arm is concealed by the sculpt of everything else on the figure. So moving it here, see that little raised point to the shoulder? When you move it, it lines itself up with all the other sculpt of the body. That is a really nice touch. Again, it means, though, you're not going to get a lot of articulation. And maybe you could even warrant, well, okay, this creature may not have a lot of movability in his arms. Maybe the creature itself can only move his arms left and right. It's a ridiculous thought, but there are many creatures out there that don't have as much movability as a human being, for example. The middle arms don't appear they do anything. In fact, it looks as if they should be sculpted to move, being like, example, right there. There's a section where it looks like it's a separate piece, but I guess it's just where it's been applied. The only other articulation in the arms is a hinge in the elbow. Not even a rotational hinge or anything like that. It's just strictly a hinge. He has no articulation in the wrists, and there's a nice sculpt on his hands. And then when you get down to his legs, His legs, they only look as if they hinge forward and back, and also a hinge in the knee. That's it. That's all it is. Now, you know, when you're posing the figure, you may not necessarily need it to be super posable. You might not need to have the legs be able to spread further out, or be able to rotate the legs, rotate the arms. Maybe that's not a big deal to you. But again, I'm looking at it, and you know what it really reminds me of? It really reminds me of the Terror Dogs from the original NECA Ghostbusters line. Great figures, but very limited by what they could do. Knifehead has that same sort of limitations, but I suppose, if anything, I have to commend NECA for concealing where joints move. So, I mean, that is some testament to the sculpt that they did on the figure. And again, I feel as if the figure should have been a little larger. Maybe should have been a little larger. You guys can let me know. For those who have seen the movie, maybe Knifehead, for example, is scaled appropriately to the Jaegers, but I feel as if he's just a little too small for my liking. What would I really rate a figure like this? Well, again, it becomes really gray, because for all intents and purposes, he is articulated. He's just not as articulated as some of the action figures we're now used to. And maybe we are just spoiled by some of the figures that we're getting now by NECA, that to look at a figure that has a simple hinge joint or a swivel rotational joint, maybe something like that, are we becoming too spoiled now that because we get this on a figure, that it's a bad figure? It's not necessarily a bad figure, I suppose. It's just a little more disappointing. And I guess maybe the bar has been raised by them now, that looking at something like this, you feel like it just could have been a little bit better. Sculpt-wise, I'm happy with him. Paint-wise, I'm happy with him. But I feel he's just an average figure, is the best way I could describe it. He's just average. For that reason, I'm only going to give Knifehead a 6.5. Now, if you are interested in picking up any of the Pacific Rim figures or any of the other figures from NECA, by all means, again, check out Super Power Collectibles down below. Use the coupon code, save yourself $10. Definitely check them out. Today's Toy Spot, we're having a look at the Pacific Rim Knifehead. Now, stay tuned, though, guys. Spot's definitely got still more reviews heading your way. There's definitely more heading your way. I'll see you guys next time.